Welcome to Book of Katherine and the video you have been waiting for. The video where I tell you what to do when a big liberal group, what I call leftist group, not liberal, comes storming into your presentation and tries to shut it down. What do? Well, we have a little bit of a problem here. What happens is 9 times out of 10, you try to actually engage with them, which is exactly what they want. This is the last thing you should do. There are about anywhere from 50 to 1,000 people that came to speak to you. They want to hear you speak. They don't want to hear them speak. You do not lose if you have security immediately escort them out. The people who came there to listen to you speak, they are the ones that win if they're immediately escorted out. The ones that lose are the people who came to interrupt, the ones who are there to shut it down. You have to understand that it has been proven over and over and over again that those people are not actually activists. They are simply paid actors. They are there on a paycheck with a script. They've been told what time to start shutting down your presentation. They've been given a script as to what to say. They've been given keywords. If you say those keywords, that's when they should stand up and start shouting. They've been given a whole litany of commands. They've been told when you stand up, this is how long you should go for. That's why they sometimes look at their phones to see, has it been this many minutes yet? You do not lose if you have them escorted out. Should you let them continue, you know who does lose? Every single person who came to hear you speak. There is something in the Feeling Good Handbook, which is the basis for nearly all psychology today, called maximizing the negative. And that's what you do when you turn off your entire presentation and turn to focus on the negative. When you do that, you just turned away from everyone who came to hear you speak. Imagine that you came and waited and risked personal bullying, harassment. Imagine what students, teachers, faculty go through in order to come hear you speak. They put all of that on the line to sit in that seat. They're there to hear you, and when someone comes in who doesn't respect you, instead of facing them straight on, the moment someone comes to detract, you turn your attention away and you spend that time interacting. Every moment you spend interacting with them is a moment lost interacting with the crowd that came to hear you speak. Every moment you're interacting with that crowd is a moment the communists win. It's a moment the left wins. It's a moment they succeed. If you have security, escort them out. Before your presentation begins, if you have security, tell them. If anyone stands up and begins to chant, you have my permission to immediately go and escort them out. That way, when you are speaking, you simply continue to speak. And the people that came there to hear you speak, they get an uninterrupted presentation. Your mindset is still calm, and their mindset is still calm. And the video presentation of the event does not become about conservative speaker shut down, which means the whole video becomes about the left and how successful they were. But instead, the whole video becomes about how successful you were in speaking to the people that came to hear you speak. When you turn and focus on the detractors, you are maximizing the negative, those few, and you are minimizing the positive, the many. What did these few, these two, do to earn all of your attention versus the many? What if two who came to hear you stood up and spoke and started asking questions and they were on your side? What would you say to them? You would say, please sit down until the end of the lecture, and you would go on speaking. Treat the left no differently. Have a plan beforehand. Have security ready to go, sitting in a chair to your right and to your left. They just get up and they do a sweep and they escort them out, and you do not acknowledge the detractors in any way. You do not look at them. You do not acknowledge them. When you do this, you calm down the people that are there. When detractors come like that and start yelling, it puts their pulse up to a higher level. It brings their pulses up to a higher level. You are the leader of the event. You need to calm them down. The way that you do that is by simply staying calm and continuing your speech, and they will see the officers come and do the sweep. You continue speaking as if absolutely nothing is going on. Then your audience learns you had a plan. And the left is already being taken care of, which means they were already being taken care of, which means they matter to you more than the left. At every one of these events, when you give all of your attention to the left, all of the people who put their personal comfort on the line to come and hear you, who came out of hiding, it is not fair for you to simply turn to the Nazis and say, here is all of my attention, Nazis. Please take it. They didn't earn it. The people who are there to hear you speak earned it. You can wave them off if it gets that bad. Wave them off, shove them off, laugh at them. Your job is to minimize the negative, not maximize it. If you do not feed the negative, they will not want to come. Number 2, what if you don't have a security team? What if you don't have officers willing to escort them away immediately? What do you do then? We know that these students are being paid by Soros. Some of them aren't even students. We've seen the video. We've heard it from their side. They've actually told us in testimony that they aren't even from the campus themselves. Some of them are well over student age. They are paid actors, not activists. When they do this, say to everyone, when you don't have security to handle it for you, all you need to do is say, everyone, it seems that George Soros has made an appearance. Do you know who George Soros is? Do you see how you didn't turn and face the activists and give them your attention? And you tell everyone in the audience, keeping your attention on the audience, and you say, well, since you came to hear me speak and you read my bio and you didn't come to hear George Soros speak, that means you don't know his bio. So as long as he's speaking, let me read you his bio. And for as long as they are chanting, You read facts about George Soros. Have stickers. I learned about George Soros today. I met George Soros drones today. I met the George Soros paid actors today. Have pamphlets that you only hand out if George Soros paid actors show up. You do not need to have proof. They do not need to have their paycheck in their pocket. Plenty of proof has been published. It has been done. It is the left's falsehood that they have spread that you have to prove things beyond the shadow of a reasonable, they go beyond. Hillary will never be guilty in their eyes. Ever. She could be sitting there holding the server, handing it to China with the hands of the dead CIA agents with the special access programs. She could be sitting there with the knife in their back in China of all the dead CIA agents, and the left would say that's not enough proof. There will never be not enough proof. You can never, ever, ever, ever hold yourself to the left standards. Communism can never be answered. Ever. Use common sense. And in the court of common sense, it's been proven it's like beating a dead horse. You can go online, read to everyone. As long as they're there, read to them how he hires the mentally disabled to travel the country. Read to them the job description from Open Society website for the mentally disabled and how much they make a year. Play video of the buses he hires. If George Soros decides to make an appearance at your event, then go ahead and give him the pulpit during those minutes. You go ahead and you educate everybody. When they sit down, you go back to your speech. But you will always be on message. Always. Have pamphlets about George Soros. If you feel like that would be a liability, which it wouldn't at all, but I know some of you are dedicated to being nice, even though you say facts don't care about your feelings. For some reason, that somehow jives with being nice. Same thing, caring about someone's feelings. I don't know. I don't think the Revolutionary War had anything to do with being nice. I think it had to do Neither did World War II have anything to do with being nice. And I find it fascinating that people are still talking about being nice when every single red flag that concentration camps are coming back to the West is there. Every single precursor is there. They're all there. And people are still talking about being nice. The very same way that communist China began was with protests in teachers' classrooms, with students coming in and shutting down the teachers. That's why I'm doing this message. You need to fight back. So if you don't feel comfortable, just say, when they're there, have George Soros information pamphlets and say, oh, I made a decision. Oh, these people have decided to show up. I've decided that every time they show up, I'm going to hand out these information pamphlets about George Soros. Thank you for showing up. Now I have the ability to share information about George Soros. Had you not shown up, I would not have shared these information pamphlets about George Soros. Let's learn about George Soros, everybody. Let's go pass these out. Pass these out. Does everyone have one? Now let's read through them. Let's learn about George Soros, everybody. And while they chant, believe you me, everybody will be enraptured about your information about George Soros. Believe you me. They will be amazed at how paid actors, not activists, are mobbing Europe and doing the exact same thing there that they're doing here. Information is power. These are the things they came there to hear you say. And you don't have to say them unless they come to your room. If they decide to show up in your room and you're there to talk about economics and you feel like you can't talk about Soros, talk about something else. Talk about all the liberal donors. Say, oh, I guess you guys are here to protest the 1%. Let's talk about the 1%. And then you go through how of the top 20 of the Forbes top 100 richest families, 75% are Democrat. And on the list of top 10 wealthiest billionaires in America, 8 of them are liberal donors. 2 of them are on the fence. But the 8 who are liberal donors, they're at the top of the list. They're Google, they're Facebook, they're Amazon. Isn't that interesting? They're the number 1, 2, 3, and Microsoft, 4, 5 companies in the world. How is it that the DNC's best donors are all the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 companies in the world? That's amazing information to give out that maybe you wouldn't have handed out in your lecture had these guys not shown up. If they storm the stage, that's when you start a PowerPoint presentation. Say, thank you for being here. Oh, you're here. Boom. You have a plan. They had a plan to storm the stage. You make sure it's a chain reaction. They're here. Oh, I am so tired of watching videos where they storm the stage and every conservative speaker and every conservative classroom just looks stunned, like they didn't see this coming. Like, oh my goodness, they feed off that. That's an aphrodisiac to them. Oh, that's power to them. That's so much power. That just makes more of these actors get more of their friends. And they're like, oh yeah, you know why? It's bullying. Because it's no longer equality. They know they can be above another person. And isn't being above another person feel good? But don't you understand, when you let other people feel like they can be above another person, guess what society that sets up? And with all the other red flags, concentration camps are not that far behind. Even Dennis Prager said that isn't it interesting that back in the times of the Nazis, there were Jews that said that they weren't Jews. They lived their daily lives. And they said they weren't Jews, but in secret they were. And he said that I think it's interesting that today there are a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump and they're Donald Trump supporters, but they don't say that in their daily lives for fear of persecution. That's a hint. That's a hint. You cannot just stand there and act like scared schoolmarms like you didn't see this coming. You must have a plan. When they start, snap into action. Throw up, turn on the PowerPoint, bring out your thing, put on the slide, and start showing facts about George Soros or facts about the Liberal Party. Nancy Pelosi is actually the biggest earner on Capitol Hill. This is how much she earned last year, more than any other earner on Capitol Hill. This is how much she earned last year. Or these are the KKK stats. All the things. Because this is the thing about the DNC that no one ever points up. Do you want to know the secret about the DNC and the Liberal Party? Come here. Let me just let you in on it. Let me let all of you conservative, libertarian, and liberal speakers, because let me tell you, it was really rough. New Hampshire, live free or die, that's dead. New Hampshire's dead. Live free or die, because they shut down a liberal speaker at the University of New Hampshire. So let me tell you the trick. Conservatives, from what I've seen, keep going out there and they keep saying institutional racism doesn't exist. And we shouldn't go after the 1% and the businesses, big businesses, you know, they're not the problem. Big government is the problem. And everything the left sells and the reason they get the votes, conservatives say, vote for us for another reason. Here's what you're missing. Let me give you the big hint. The DNC wins because they say everything that's really wrong with America. Bernie Sanders got all that support because the 1% really does control the laws in America. The 1% really did change the commodities laws, change the wealth gap. The 1% did that. The 1% does control American laws. The DNC and the left is correct. The DNC is also correct. There is institutional racism. There is a problem with racism. A big problem. You know how they get that right and how they get all the votes? Because the DNC creates it all. The DNC is the problem. The DNC knows what pain people are in. They are able to tap into every single little pain the people are feeling because they are the very ones twisting it in. Minorities, oh, they feel like there's racism out there. And there is. There is, because they're disappearing from Hollywood. Women are disappearing from films. Islam is growing in larger and larger numbers, and they want to kill Jews. Oh yeah, there is racism out there, and it's growing. Affirmative action, it's the epitome of racism. Places kids in schools that they can't succeed. That's why nearly half of all college recipients, they get in, but nearly half don't graduate. Only 59% of students that go into college graduate. Only 59%. But the banks still get their money. Why is that? Because of the racist laws that the DNC put in place. Because the DNC is the KKK. They have undone every single piece of the Civil Rights Act because they were the ones who filibustered the Civil Rights Act. Oh, desegregation, they undid that too. All the #1 shows in Hollywood, The Cosby Show, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Steve Urkel, The Bodyguard, Glory. Oh, then the DNC and liberals took control of Hollywood, tightened their grip. Now they have 100% control. And it's all gone. Who do they put up instead? Figureheads in music that live in the hood and do drugs, commit crimes, and smoke weed. Never get married. Direct route to poverty. That's racism. The people know when they're being shafted. And the DNC knows they're being shafted. Because they're the ones shafting them. The DNC's so good about saying the 1%'s in control. Because it's the 1% paying the DNC. All the liberal donors are the DNC. What companies grew the most? You look at the top 10 list. Who grew? Facebook, 15 billion, 20 billion, all these things. The ones that are on the fence, that were kind of conservative, kind of liberal, they grew the very least. The liberals exploded in 1 year. What happened to the American people? Their poverty levels grew. Oh, the DNC's right. The rich own the government, but it's through the DNC. They just never say that. That's your job, conservatives. When they get up there and they start speaking, all you have to do is say, hey, the DNC's right. The 1% is controlling the government through the DNC. You're right, there is institutional racism through the DNC. They undid desegregation. They undid the Civil Rights Act. And George Soros isn't even an American. And he owns Van Jones to the librarians, to the education system, to the school lunch program, to resistanceschool.com, where they're training your kids to become communists every single day. So conservative speakers have a plan. When they show up, ignore them if you have security guards. If you don't, every time they speak, just have a pattern. This is when I'm going to speak and educate the people about George Soros. If you give out stickers and they wear it, I met George Soros drones today, because that's all they are. George Soros is here, he pays them. Show him all of his little things and all the people that he has. Oh, tell them about Black Lives Matter. That Black Lives Matter was not a grassroots thing, and neither was the Occupy Wall Street movement. All of those things were started, they were just companies and corporations started by a rich white billionaire. They're just companies funded by the 1% to make the 1% more money. They all say the 1%, oh, Warren Buffett's so great, he gave away so much of his money. Microsoft gave away so much of his money. You think he gave it away to feed the poor? Or did he do it to get tax laws that would make the rich richer and the poor poorer? I wonder. Why don't you just take a look at the wealth gap chart and how it looked when the DNC took control of the media, the press, and Congress. Because when the RNC took control of Congress and the White House, Facebook didn't grow for the first time. They sold off their shares and got hauled in front of Congress for lying to its members about its security. Now, why didn't the DNC ever do that? Conservative speakers, it's time to minimize the negative in your speaking rooms. Maximize the positive, the people that are there to hear you speak. Take advantage of the time. Make George Soros and the left deeply sorry they ever entered your space. Have a plan. Let it be known that if they ever enter your space, materials will be distributed that would not have been distributed otherwise. Stickers that if they wear throughout the college campus, people will say, "What do you mean George Soros drones?" And they can pull out the research, and the pamphlet has all the information. Why don't you guys get a coalition together? Make a video. But the last thing you should do is disrespect the people that came to hear you so much as to turn your head away and look up into the stands and try to speak to people being paid $50 an hour to kill your speech. When you do that, they've won and you lose. History has shown us this fight, the cost is way, way too high to lose. It must be won for everyone's sake. Thank you for listening. I'm Book of Katherine. Please share this video with everyone and anyone you know that's on a campus that's thinking about hiring a conservative speaker, that is a conservative speaker, or in the conservative leadership community, or even in the liberal community or libertarian community that is trying to speak on campuses that is not a communist, that doesn't fit their script of turning communist drones to change this nation fully into China more than it already is. I encourage you to watch China Uncensored to see how far we've already come. You need only go as far as our movies right here to understand how deep this really goes. As Doug Weed said, communism is a predator. It preys on weakness. Be weak no more. Have a plan, and you will be so strong. Peace out, guys. I love you.